Part 1. Hook/Cold Open. The last thing the HOA meeting secretary wrote before bolting was: Subject: Fence height violation at Parcel 14C, O'Doyle Ranch. Then the walls shook. Outside, 200 thundering, snorting, grass-fueled bison stormed the Maplewood Hills HOA office, led by an aggressive bull named Chairman Moo. The stampede trampled landscaping, shattered the Covenant Compliance Hall, and left behind a carpet of hoofprints and dung. In the security footage, you can see Karen Del Vecchio, president, enforcer, terror of every tulip bed, sprinting out the back door in orthopedic wedges, screaming, "Why are there horns coming through the wall?" Part 2. Setup/Intro. Brady O'Doyle was a sixth-generation rancher who owned the last surviving plot of open land bordering the newly erected nightmare of beige called Maplewood Hills Estates. He minded his business, mended his fences, and raised bison, quietly. Until the HOA formed. Until Karen Del Vecchio decided that the pastoral charm of a working ranch was detrimental to the modern aesthetic of suburban tranquility. Her first act as HOA president? Declaring Brady's perimeter fence non-compliant with HOA visual standards. Her second? Hiring contractors to remove it without his consent. Part 3. Rising Action. Brady woke up to find half his southern fence flattened and 3 HOA goons admiring their work like they'd won a landscaping award. "You're welcome," one of them sneered. The HOA voted unanimously. Your fence was ruining the neighborhood's resale value. Brady, in his flannel and boots, simply nodded and said, "I'll handle the repairs." What he didn't mention was that the damaged fence had held back a 200-head herd of ornery, easily agitated bison, and that the HOA office was built on what used to be their favorite grazing spot. Part 4. Turning Point. Brady replaced the fence. Briefly. Then he quietly opened it back up one moonless night and used a mix of trail feed, cowbell training, and vengeance to guide the bison straight into the heart of Maplewood Hills. Using the same truck the HOA once threatened to fine him for parking too ruggedly, Brady led the beasts on a slow roll into HOA headquarters. Inside, Karen was mid-sentence about someone's mailbox font when the stampede hit. Part 5. Power Shift. The damage was biblical. Desks overturned. HOA bylaws shredded and eaten. A life-sized cutout of Karen holding a citation sign was gored in half. Karen tried to file charges, but Brady had the receipts, security cam footage of HOA men trespassing, destroying private agricultural property, and removing a livestock barrier without legal cause. The sheriff? Old friends with Brady. His response: "You broke a rancher's fence and expected peace?" Karen's face when the sheriff told her she was under investigation for destruction of livestock infrastructure? Priceless. Part 6. Climax/Payoff. Karen was fined by the county, sued by Brady, and billed for damages by the HOA's own insurer, who promptly dropped them for gross negligence leading to hoof-based structural compromise. Brady, meanwhile, live-streamed a barbecue fundraiser from the former HOA parking lot with the banner: "Burgers for Boundaries. Rebuild fences, not egos." Chairman Moo got his own TikTok. Part 7. Resolution/Moral Twist. Karen moved to a condo downtown. No yards, no fences, and a strict no-pets policy. The Maplewood Hills HOA was dissolved and rebranded as a community suggestion board, run by a local teen. Brady's Ranch now features a reinforced fence, plus a new sign: "Trespassers will be trampled." HOA Karen already was. The hospital administrator, a woman named Dr. Rebecca Chen, who'd apparently tangled with Rhonda during a previous incident involving Rhonda's crusade against face masks in the gift shop, immediately pulled the security footage and called the sheriff herself. Rhonda was arrested that night on charges of assault, reckless endangerment, and unlawful restraint. As the officers led her away, she kept insisting with an increasingly shrill voice, "I'm the HOA president. I have authority here." But it didn't stop there. Not even close. Erin's OB-GYN, Dr. Martinez, was absolutely furious when she heard what happened. She filed a complaint with the state health department about interference with emergency medical care. A state health representative got involved within 48 hours, launching a full investigation. And then my cousin Derek entered the picture. Derek's a civil rights lawyer who usually handles employment discrimination cases, but he has a taste for high-drama court cases and what he calls justice theater. When he heard what happened, he drove 3 hours to take our case pro bono, saying with a grin that could light up a football stadium, "I've been waiting my whole career for something this insane." The criminal trial began 6 weeks later. Rhonda's lawyers, 2 men in expensive suits who looked like they regretted every life choice that led them to this moment, tried to paint her as confused and overly concerned for community standards. Their argument was that Rhonda misunderstood the situation and thought she was protecting the hospital from someone she believed didn't belong there. They claimed she was acting out of an abundance of caution and civic duty. That narrative lasted approximately until the audio tape, Exhibit B, started playing. One of the nurses, Sarah, had been recording a voice memo for her nursing school study group when the incident happened. She'd captured the entire thing in crystal-clear audio. Rhonda's voice rang out through the courtroom speakers with stunning clarity. "You're not married to him properly. You're not on the HOA deed. You don't get to be in here pretending to have his baby." Then came Erin's scream of pain, not from labor, but from Rhonda yanking her arm so hard it left bruises that were photographed and entered as Exhibit C. One juror audibly gasped. Another put her hand over her mouth. The judge's expression went from professionally neutral to barely contained disgust. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Davidson, paused the tape and asked Rhonda directly, "Can you explain to the court what connection you believed existed between HOA documentation and emergency medical care?" Rhonda tried to explain with a defensive tone that fooled nobody. "Property rights extend to all aspects of community engagement, including the use of community-adjacent facilities. The hospital is not part of your HOA, is it?" Ms. Davidson asked. "Well, no, but many of our residents use it, so there's an implied relationship of governance," Rhonda replied with the confidence of someone who'd completely lost touch with reality. The judge actually laughed. Not a chuckle, but a full laugh that he tried to cover with a cough. Derek presented our civil case immediately after the criminal charges were addressed. He'd done his homework. He'd found 17 other incidents where Rhonda had overstepped her authority as HOA president, including trying to ban a family from the community pool because their daughter had a prosthetic leg that Rhonda claimed was a safety hazard. He also discovered that Rhonda had been using HOA funds to pay for personal legal consultations about expanding HOA authority over the local shopping center, something that was completely outside her jurisdiction and definitely illegal. The criminal verdict came back in less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge called Rhonda's actions reprehensible and stated with a grave tone that sent chills through the courtroom, "You, Ms. Stilts, are a threat to medical autonomy and common decency. Your delusions of authority created a dangerous situation that could have resulted in the death of both a mother and her child." Rhonda was sentenced to 6 months of house arrest with an ankle monitor, 300 hours of community service specifically at facilities serving pregnant women and new mothers, and she was banned from volunteering in any healthcare-related setting for life. The judge also ordered her to pay a $10,000 fine and complete mandatory psychological evaluation and treatment. But the best part came when the HOA board held an emergency meeting that evening. The vote to remove her was unanimous, 18-0. When they announced the results, Rhonda stood up and screamed with a voice that cracked with rage and disbelief, "You can't do this. I made this community what it is." Board member Frank Stevens replied calmly, "That's exactly why we're doing this." The civil case judgment came down 2 weeks later. Rhonda was ordered to pay us $75,000 in damages, plus all legal fees. When the amount was read in court, she collapsed into her chair, her face turning the exact shade of the beige mailbox she'd fined us for, muttering over and over with a broken whisper, "But I was protecting standards. I was protecting standards."